Well, I've actually got some pretty good progress to report this week. As you can see, I've got 4 engines sitting there in the square like they will be. Got a couple chains on there, just temporary. I haven't cut the length back from when I had the 2 motors connected yet, but I'll be doing that pretty quick here. So I got the 2 ones on the left like you've been seeing now for a long time, but I've actually got 2 of the lawnmower engines mounted now. I come up with this angle bracket idea here. Mounts on it that way. I'll just set it aside there. You can see, so it catches the 2 bolts there. And I still have to make a mount for the 3rd bolt, otherwise it will flop around. As well as brace this angle. So I went with the arrangement there with 3 on the front and then the back one, and then the next set intention is to run all 4 together. So there will be an odd spacing between the top 2 motors, but then it'll go back to normal. These ones on this side, it's too late, they're all welded on, and that's why partially what determined this. The other thing is, you can see I got my starter nut on there. I'll show you later in the video how I got that welded on centered, and it's centered. I spun the shaft over and it doesn't flop around or anything, so that's good. So that'll be for my go-kart starter. It'll come in here and go in that way. Hopefully it'll crank it over. Won't crank all 12, that's for sure, but I'm going to try a bank of 4 like this, or 3 and 6. I don't know. I'm awaiting a shipment of sprockets. I ordered 6 more, and then as of today, I had one that I used to cut the shaft off flush with yesterday, and it seemed to have disappeared on me. So right now I'm actually 1 sprocket short, but here's hoping I can track that down. But I got 4 of them ganged up there for the next 4 motors, and I cut 3 of these mounts, cut and coped them, and so that guy would go probably down there for the bottom one, and I just have enough angle to make 3 more, so I have enough to do those mounts. And I'll use, I don't know, this, figuring to get to this bolt hole here is going to be a little tricky. I think I'll have a steel plate, then I'll come down probably at an angle, because I got to allow for the larger bearings here if and when I go at the 24 cylinder and the larger shaft, because I got the larger bearings, so I can't just drop straight down or it would hit the bearing housing. But and of course I got to deal with this muffler on this one. This one works out okay now because it's not going to hit this motor, but when they line up I may run them out forward or back out of 45. But the reason I went with rototiller motors on this side, you got the intake on this side, so I'll have intake manifold running out here. Then on the other side, I wanted the intake manifold on this side, and it just so happens that the lawnmower engine, the gas tank and intake's on this side, so I can exhaust on the far side, but at least I'll have carburetors on the outside on both sides, so I'll just have to deal with the exhaust. But anyway, so at least I'm making some progress here in spite of the fact it was 91 Fahrenheit here today. I'm glad I got this shade over me here, but even it doesn't work because the sun comes in at an angle. But and the days are getting shorter too, unfortunately. But so it's starting to take shape here. So I will be continuing on with it. So everybody, thanks for your interest, and as you can see, I'm finally starting to make some progress again here. So appreciate your watching, and hope you will continue to do so, and stay away from COVID. So everybody take care. So I've got my end sprocket here for the timing shaft on the H12, and the other 2 mount here. So I wanted to weld a nut to it in order to use my go-kart starter, because it has uses a socket and a hex there. So I don't know what's going on with that horn in the background, but anyway, so I had to figure out a way how to get this centered. So I used a Briggs crankshaft here, and I clamped my sprocket to it, and because it's got a 3/8 fine thread inside of it. So I used the cone centering principle here. So I have a 3/8 fine tap and the cone on it, and so I just screwed it down in. I'm not going to take it all the way, it'll take too long, and held the nut in place with that, and nice and centered. I looked at it from the end, and it was all nice and centered. So then I welded her up and then took the tap back out there. Probably should have taken it out sooner, because I probably softened it up or something. But so now I don't need this nut this long. This is a coupling nut, so I'm going to cut it probably in half. But I needed more by the time I welded it than a standard hex nut. So I'll spin her over on the shaft there, and we'll see how centered my weld job is. But just want to show you this idea. And this is the same way that if, say, you have a steel plate with holes in it and you want to weld nuts to it, you use, I guess they're called flathead bolts. Bolt with a cone on it there, coming up this way, and you screw that in. You stick it through the hole, and you put the nut on top, and then the cone centers the nut, and you weld the nut into the steel plate. So good idea that my fitter friend taught me there. So hopefully it worked fine on this.